Okay, it is Tuesday, and that can only mean that it is Tea Time Tuesday. But today is going to be a little different than what I've done in the past. I don't necessarily have a cup of tea that I'm going to share with you, but what I'm going to talk about today are 13 spices that chances are you have in your spice cabinet, your herbs and spices. Chances are you have these already in your spice cabinet, and I'm going to share them with you as to how you can make tea from them, because you probably don't even realize that you can actually make tea from a lot of the spices that you already have and a lot of the herbs that you already have in your spice cabinet. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today I've mentioned on previous live streams, but I'm going to go through a couple different. I do have some notes. If you see me looking down, that is why. I do have a couple different tea blends that I'm going to share with you, in addition to just the single herb or spice that you can make a tea from. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, because I don't want this to be too long and drawn out, because like I said, there are about 12 or 13 herbs and spices that I want to share with you today. The first one, many of you may have already, and this is turmeric. And the curry powder gets its yellow color from the turmeric that is in there. So this is turmeric, and I love using turmeric. It blends so easily with a lot of different spices and herbs. And one of the first things I want to share with you is something called golden milk, or turmeric tea, whichever, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people call it golden milk, and in the Ayurveda tradition, it is referred to as golden milk. So turmeric, like I said, gives the yellow in curry, and there are numerous benefits to turmeric. Some people say turmeric. It all depends on who's saying it, but this is turmeric. It's a very bright golden color. And so let me give you some of the benefits to this. It is extremely anti-inflammatory. And one of the blends that I actually one of the first blends that I started out with years ago was what I call FTG, which is frankincense, turmeric, and ginger, and I take it in a capsule form. And there's also the frankincense, turmeric, and ginger with a little bit of cayenne pepper. So that's the FTGC blend, because the cayenne pepper adds another level of the anti-inflammatory benefits to it. So I mentioned frankincense. That obviously is not an herb or a spice. That's not going to be part of this, but the first blend, I guess herbal capsule that I started taking was frankincense, turmeric, and ginger with the cayenne pepper in it. So turmeric, like I said, is extremely anti-inflammatory. It does help to lower your cholesterol. And several years ago, when my cholesterol kind of, got a little bit too high for my liking and my doctor's liking, before he actually suggested that he wanted to put me on some cholesterol medication, and I suggested no, because I did not want to go on another pharmaceutical. I think I was on 15 at the time. So when I told him no, and I said, look, there's something I would like to try. And a lot of doctors aren't really keen on you working with herbal remedies. So he said, I don't want to know what you're going to do. But I said, just give me 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. And if I come back and my cholesterol isn't where you want it to be, then I will go ahead and gladly take your, the cholesterol medication that you're going to prescribe. So 3 weeks later, I have a follow-up, and my cholesterol had dropped by 101 points. Yes, it was that high. It had dropped by 101 points. No, that's not true. It had dropped by 51 points, because I think it was at 100. It was pretty high, but it had dropped by, I believe, 51 points. And my doctor was kind of shocked. And I said, well, that thing that you didn't want me to take, that's what I was taking. And that actually helped. And he said, whatever it is that you were doing, just keep doing it. And what I did was I simply added in turmeric into my daily diet. And turmeric does help. It helped me with lowering my cholesterol. And I've not had an issue with cholesterol since. So that's another benefit. If you are experiencing fatigue, you might want to have some turmeric tea throughout the day as well. Most people drink golden milk or turmeric tea at the end of the day, because I've heard a lot of people say that it helps them to sleep. I drink turmeric tea or golden milk at the beginning of the day because it actually gives me energy. So it all depends on how, you might, if you drink it and you, at the beginning of the day, and you feel that it is making you sleepy, then it might interact with your body that way. So have it at night. So you're still getting the benefits from the turmeric during the night while you sleep. But if it's going to help you to sleep, then take it at the end of the day rather than at the beginning. For me, I drink it at the beginning of the day because it actually gives me energy, right? If you experience any issues like fibromyalgia or that nerve pain, the anti-inflammatory benefits in turmeric is also really good for that. And there's a host of other benefits. Now, to make your golden milk or turmeric tea, all you'll need is some turmeric, of course. You need some black pepper. You want to have some milk, and the milk is entirely up to you. I use coconut milk. You can also use almond milk. You want to add a little bit of ghee or G, depending on how you pronounce it, Ghee, or a little bit of butter in there as well. You can add in some spices like cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, clove. Mix that all up together, add in some raw honey to sweeten it. And then you can also add in just a touch of either, take a vanilla bean, scrape out some of the seeds and add that in, or you can just add in just maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of some vanilla flavoring into your golden milk. And it's that easy to make. And it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory drink. All right, so that is turmeric. And I've already mentioned a few other spices that I'm going to talk about, like cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, and clove. The next one I'm going to do is let's talk about some cardamom. I've got a container of all the spices sitting beside me. So these are cardamom seeds. Typically, you'll find them in pods. But when you crack the pod, then inside are these tiny little seeds. So for me, it's a lot easier to just work with it this way. And I wish you could smell this. Oh my gosh. In the Ayurvedic tradition, they use, well, I shouldn't say not just Ayurveda, but in India, this is considered to be the queen of spice, of all the spices. And if you go to any Indian festival and you have some, like a mango lassi, that really unique flavor that's in there, that is cardamom. You cannot have mango lassi without having some cardamom in there. But I love to put cardamom into my turmeric tea as well, or the golden milk, in addition to the ginger, cinnamon, and clove. So what are some benefits of cardamom? It does help to relieve bloating and gas. It also, if you took a couple of the seeds and chew on them, it actually helps to freshen your breath. So if you have an issue with halitosis, then chewing on a few, or even making like a mouthwash make a tea with the cardamom seeds and use it as a mouthwash, that would help to freshen your breath as well. So it's really good for oral care, cavity prevention. That's another benefit of the cardamom. If you have issues with blood pressure, drinking anything that has cardamom in it, so even the turmeric tea or the golden milk will also help to lower your blood pressure because it has the cardamom in it. If you have issues with diabetes, this does help to kind of regulate your blood sugar. And for people who have issues with breathing, like asthma, that sort of thing, having some, either using the oil, kind of massaging, if you have the like cardamom oil, massaging your neck, massaging your chest, or drinking some cardamom tea that actually helps to open up the airways so that you can breathe a lot deeper. Muscle and joint pain and spasms, cardamom also helps to alleviate that sort of stuff. So it does have, you'll notice a lot of the spices that I mentioned are extremely anti-inflammatory. So the golden milk in itself is a powerful anti-inflammatory drink. So that's one of the reasons why I drink it. And that's one of the reasons why I use some of the other herbs and spices in there as well, because of the anti-inflammatory benefits. And if you're not familiar with my background, I was diagnosed with lupus years, I don't even remember how many years ago now. And because of all of the research that I've done using herbs and other natural remedies, I've come up with different tea blends that have consistently helped to keep me healthy. And golden milk is one of them that I've been working with for a long time. So I don't have any issues with swollen joints. There was a time when I would wake up and all my joints, this is the most that I could do to close my hand because my fingers were always so swollen. And if you have any kind of autoimmune condition like lupus, you'll know that joint pain is one of the things that you deal with on an almost regular basis. So the golden milk or the turmeric tea that I mentioned before, that's a powerful anti-inflammatory blend. And there's so many different recipes online. That's why I don't necessarily go through, how to make it, because you can certainly just do some research on your own and come up with a recipe that you would like. Because I could give you my recipe and you might not I might use a little bit too much of the turmeric, a little bit too much of this. So when you play around with the ingredients that you already have, you'll come up with a blend that you love and that you will consistently use. All right. So other benefits of cardamom include urinary issues. So if you have any things like UTIs, the cardamom will also be beneficial for that. So that is cardamom. The other ingredients in here in the turmeric or the golden milk is ginger. Let me grab that real quickly. And most of the ones that I have are powders or the ground up. Okay, so, and chances are you have a lot of these already sitting in your spice cabinet, which is why I went through this morning and I was trying to think about, what can I talk about today rather than just having a cup of tea to share with you that, that would be beneficial. And I said, well, a lot of people have spice cabinets. Let me go through and find spices that most people would have and kind of talk about how you can use them to make teas, right? So ginger is another ingredient in the turmeric tea that I mentioned earlier, but I'm sure that you're familiar with just making ginger tea, which is really good for nausea and that sort of stuff. You can mix a little bit of lemon juice with the ginger or just a slice of lemon. Pour some hot water onto the ginger with the lemon, and that's a really, really beneficial tea right there as well. So not only is it good in the turmeric tea, but it's also good on its own or just mixed in with some lemon slices. All right, so that is ginger, which most people do have. So let me give you a few benefits of the ginger. And I mentioned before that the FTG, the frankincense, turmeric, and ginger, that herbal blend is one of the first things that I started on years ago when I decided pharmaceuticals were just not for me, because I had been made sick and I had a near-death experience as a result of a couple of them that I was taking. So I started on the frankincense, turmeric, and ginger, and then the periodic cayenne pepper, which is also extremely anti-inflammatory. So ginger, again, also has those anti-inflammatory benefits. So it will help to reduce any inflammation that you may have in your body. It's great for nausea, which I mentioned earlier, and of course, muscle pain and joint pain, because it's going to reduce the inflammation. So by reducing the inflammation, you're also reducing the pain that you might experience. So that is ginger. The next one that is also a part of the turmeric milk is cinnamon. And you don't necessarily have to use all of, let me just find it here. You don't necessarily have to use all of these particular spices in your golden milk. You can choose whichever ones that you want to add in. But I have ginger here in two forms. So I'm going to grab a ginger, not ginger, I have cinnamon here in two forms. So I have it in the ground form, and I also have cinnamon stick. So that's what the cinnamon stick looks like. It literally is the bark of the tree. And after it's dried, it kind of curls up. Okay. So that is cinnamon, and then I also have the ground cinnamon in powdered form. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that most of you will have at least the powdered form in your spice cabinet, but the stick form, you can find that as well. And I actually found bags of this at the Dollar Tree. I was very surprised to find it there. So you can find that in two forms. And again, cinnamon is extremely anti-inflammatory. I think you're seeing a trend. I try to work with a lot of the herbs that are anti-inflammatory because I want to keep inflammation down in my body. When you keep the inflammation down, then of course you're keeping your chances of getting ill way down as well, because inflammation is basically a response to something that's going on in your body, and when inflammation rises, then it increases your chances of getting some kind of illness later on, right? So you want to keep your inflammation down. So cinnamon is anti-inflammatory. If you're a diabetic or you have issues with blood sugar, cinnamon is one herb that is usually recommended to help lower your blood sugar. But if you're already taking, diabetic medication, you want to make sure that you are consulting your doctor before you add cinnamon in, because then your blood sugar could drop really low. You don't want to use cinnamon in addition to blood sugar medication. You want to do one or the other, because you don't want your sugar to drop too low, because that in itself could, that could cause a lot of issues. You can also make cinnamon tea just by itself, just by taking a stick of the cinnamon, dropping it into a cup of hot water, and just let it steep for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You can add in some raw honey to sweeten it. You can add in, maybe some lemon juice in addition to that. So you can also make the cinnamon tea by itself, but I have it mixed in with the turmeric or the golden milk. Cinnamon is loaded with antioxidants. It's antibacterial, it's antiviral, all of that good stuff, right? I would not recommend that you drink, if you're drinking the cinnamon tea, you do not want to be drinking this every single day, because it can, like I said, lower your blood sugar a little bit too much. And always consult a doctor if you're taking medication for any kind of medication really, but especially if you're taking the diabetic medication or medication for diabetes. You want to make sure that you are consulting with your physician before you make any changes, all right, so that they know to always monitor your blood sugar, especially more whenever you start any kind of herbal remedies in addition to pharmaceuticals that you might be taking. All right, so the next one I think I mentioned that's part of the golden milk was clove. Let me set this here. And everything that I have, these are all ground, but you can certainly find whole cloves as well. These are the ground. Now clove, you might know that clove has been used in the past for oral pain. So if you have like a cavity that's gotten really bad and it's really hurting, if you take a little bit of clove powder and just kind of pack it in, or you just take some people say just take the whole clove, crush it up, and you can put that in there. Or if you have the clove essential oil, you take now clove essential oil is considered to be a hot oil, meaning that if you put it on your skin without diluting it in something, it could potentially burn your skin. So you always want to use the clove essential oil diluted in some olive oil or some coconut oil before you rub it on your skin, or you put it inside of your mouth. Typically, if I'm using the clove essential oil, I would mix it in with, I would do it when I'm doing some oil pulling, maybe a half a teaspoon of coconut oil, a drop of the clove essential oil, and I swish that around in my mouth. And that is really good for oral health. And if you have any kind of, like I said, really bad cavities, then you can also put a drop of the clove essential oil right into the where you're hurting, and it numbs it almost instantly. So that's the thing. You cannot overuse this, because then you end up with your mouth just being completely numb, and then you're drooling, because clove is extremely powerful. It's very, very strong. So I know in the past I've made a mouthwash and this was, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, was experiencing really bad oral ulcers. I think at one point I had probably 12 or 15 of what, with lupus, they're called, I guess, oral ulcers. Most people just call them canker sores. But imagine that amount inside the mouth, right? They hurt. Just one of them hurts. But when you have multiple, you don't eat. You try to drink, but even drinking kind of irritates, right? And I made a mouthwash that had clove in it, in addition to a few other antiseptic herbs, and that really helped with the pain. I have not had a canker sore in years, but when I was first diagnosed with lupus, I was having them a lot, and that's a regular concern I've learned with people who've been diagnosed with lupus. You do end up with these sores inside of your mouth. But clove, the clove powder, as well as the clove essential oil, that can help to alleviate any of that pain. I don't think I've ever made clove tea by itself. I mean, I'm sure that you could just mix this with some water and swish around in your mouth, but I don't think I've ever made just a regular clove tea, so I wouldn't do that here. But you can certainly mix this with maybe some cinnamon and add in a little bit of coconut oil into it and just kind of swish it around in your mouth, and that's really good, just for maintaining oral health. I do that with oil pulling, which I do every single day, and that has actually helped me to keep what teeth I do have left that lupus hasn't claimed, because that was one of the areas that lupus really did attack for me back in, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years ago. It really attacked my mouth, and clove essential oil, in addition to oil pulling, was really, really helpful. And this was one of the things that I use in the oil pulling all the time. All right, so, but the clove is also in the golden milk, not recipe, but the golden milk ingredients that I mentioned earlier. And you can find your own recipe online, or you can create your own. All right, so clove. The other thing is it's extremely high in antioxidants. Again, this one is also beneficial if you have diabetes. It does help with bone strength, with digestive issues that you might have. It's antiviral, it's antibacterial, all of those. And it does help to protect the liver, but you don't want to overdo it. Like any other herb, you do not want to overdo it. Especially, I mentioned earlier with cinnamon as well. You don't want to be using it on a consistently regular basis, because then you could end up with like liver toxicity. And that's why I said just make sure that you're using these under the care of your doctor, especially if you're taking any other pharmaceutical medication, because those could also clash and cause you some problems. So that is clove. There's another blend I mentioned in a previous video, that was chai masala tea. Actually, chai masala is the actual name because chai means tea. And that's a mistake a lot of us make when we say chai tea. The word chai actually means tea. So chai masala is the actual name of this drink. And ingredients that you typically find in chai include things like cinnamon, which I mentioned before, anise seed, cardamom, which I also mentioned, peppercorns, cloves, ginger, allspice, vanilla, nutmeg, as well as using the black tea bags. That's typically. Hi, Jackie. It's good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the herbs and spices that I did not talk about that were in the turmeric, the golden tea, or the turmeric tea. All right, so cinnamon we've talked about. Anise seed is one that we have not spoken about. And I think my anise is hidden away in a container that I haven't unpacked yet because I recently moved. So I don't have the anise to show you, but I'm sure you're familiar with anise star, and the anise seed is the shape of a star and has these tiny little seeds on the inside. If you've never worked with it, I would highly recommend that you get yourself some anise and have that in your spice cabinet. Anise helps to regulate your blood sugar. Again, you're seeing a trend. A lot of these help to with inflammation, or they help to regulate your blood sugar. They also help with the digestive area, and the digestive area is said to hold 75 to 80% of the immune system. So if you heal the gut area, chances are you're going to heal the rest of the body. So when I was doing all of my work to heal from lupus, the area where I really focused on was getting my gut bacteria to where it needed to be. And I ended up getting a GI doctor who, we did all of the testing, had the tubes going down, and also did what's the thing with it, colonoscopy, had all of that stuff, and really took a good look on the inside to find out just how much inflammation there was in my digestive system. And then we worked from there to really heal my digestive tract. So that is the one area. And not only did I do all of those tests, I also learned what foods were anti-inflammatory. I started to work with different foods that would heal, that were considered to be part of the anti-inflammatory diet. So you might want to look that up as well. But herbs and spices were also very integral to that as well. So anise definitely helps to regulate your blood sugar. And if you have issues with depression, anise is one of those that you might want to start working with. You can definitely make anise tea by itself, just boiling some anise seeds and then add in maybe some raw honey to sweeten it. It does help to improve digestion and to heal the digestive system. If you have issues with insomnia, making some anise tea and drinking it late in the evening to kind of help you relax, because the anise does have kind of a sedative effect on the body. So if you have issues with falling asleep, then anise is one of those teas that you can drink to kind of help you relax. Now, you kind of have to develop a taste for anise. That's one of the hardest things that I had to do, because anise for me was kind of like medicinal. That's why I couldn't handle, oh gosh, there's Dr. Pepper. There was that drink that came out years ago. I just couldn't stand the smell or the taste of Dr. Pepper, because it was like medicine to me. And now I'm not saying anise is like total medicine, but for me, it does taste a little, it's a little medicinal. So it was an herb, it was a spice that I really had to kind of learn to love. Okay. And for some of you, it might be as well, but it is such a beneficial spice that I've learned to love it, and I work with it all the time. But if you do have issues sleeping, having some anise tea, because it does have that sedative effect on the body. So drinking some later on in the evening, that would help you to kind of relax and get ready for bed. If you have issues with asthma, it does help to kind of open up the airways as well. It is very antimicrobial. If you are a breastfeeding mom and you're having an issue with just how much milk you're making, as in you're not making enough, then drinking some anise seed tea will help to kind of boost the amount of milk that you make. So that I know this is something I did research on years ago, and anise tea was one of the things that actually helped to boost the amount of milk that lactating moms would make. So if if you're a breastfeeding mom, then that is one. Because typically there are a lot of herbs that when you're breastfeeding or you're pregnant that you really shouldn't be using. But anise tea is definitely beneficial for the breastfeeding mom. If you have issues, well, let me put it this way. If you have kids who are constantly bringing home lice, keep that anise in your spice cabinet, because you'll be making a lot of anise tea, and then you can use that as a wash for the hair. You can just take the anise tea and you wash it through the hair, or you can mix it with a shampoo and use it that way. But anise tea is really good for getting rid of lice and mites, that sort of thing. It does help to loosen phlegm if you have any issues with like bronchitis or the flu and you're just really congested. Drinking some anise tea helps with that as well to kind of, you know, loosen the phlegm. And if you're taking lozenges, if you're sucking on lozenges, there's like that medicinal flavor to it. That is actually anise because it's used a lot in lozenges because it does help to break up the mucus in your respiratory area. So it is good for respiratory health. It is considered to be an anti-epileptic spice. So if you know anyone who does have epilepsy and they're kind of, you know, just before they go into a full-blown seizure, drinking some anise, if a lot of people can detect when they're going into a seizure, which is why I said that. So you can drink some or give them some anise seed because it is considered to be an anti-epileptic. Now, the reason why, again, is because of that sedating effect that it does have on the body. So it kind of relaxes the body so that you're not able to go into a full-blown epileptic fit. Okay. It does help to stimulate the pancreas, and we know that a healthy pancreas will kind of prevent diabetes issues down the road. So drinking anise tea or using the anise seed in other tea blends is really beneficial for that as well. It is a natural pain reliever, just like a lot of the other herbs and spices I've shared with you. And it does help to regulate blood pressure. So if you already have low blood pressure, you do not want to be using anise because then it might drop your blood pressure too low. Okay, so if you're on blood pressure medication to keep your blood pressure down, you don't want to be using anise because then it's going to lower it even more. Okay, but if you're not taking blood pressure medication and you do have issues with high blood pressure, drinking some anise tea will kind of lower just a little bit. But again, make sure that you're working with your doctor because, you know, if you're taking blood pressure medication and you want to transition to a more natural remedy like the anise tea, then make sure they're aware of that so that you're not taking blood pressure in addition to the herbal remedy at the same time. All right. Peppercorns. And this is another ingredient in the chai masala blend. I know I have peppercorns here. Let me just grab it real quickly. All right. So peppercorns is literally just black pepper in its whole form before it's all ground. So let me just grab a couple of the seeds so you can see, right? Just peppercorns. And you can find these in any store. It's just whole black pepper. You can certainly crush these up or you can just use the, you know, powdered peppercorn. But when I'm making chai masala, I like to have the whole peppercorns. That way I can kind of scoop those out at the end because with the powder, it kind of settles and, you know, sometimes a little piece gets caught in the wrong area and you're choking. So I like to use the whole peppercorns whenever I am making the tea. So benefits of the peppercorn or whole black pepper, basically, it does help to improve cholesterol levels. And black pepper is something that you want to have if you're making the golden milk. You want to have black pepper in your golden milk with the turmeric because this does act as what we call like a catalyst to help the curcumin in the turmeric work better and gets transported better throughout your body. So that is one benefit of the black pepper or the peppercorns. You definitely want to have that in with when you're making golden milk, right? It does help with blood sugar control, just like a lot of the other spices that I mentioned. It does also help with brain and gut health. And again, you heal the gut, you heal the body. And a lot of people are, it's said that we technically have two brains. We have the brain in our head, and then we have the brain in our gut. And we really should focus on healing the brain that's in our gut because most of our immune system resides there. And a lot of the spices and herbs that I've mentioned and will mention are really good for gut health. And I fully believe that the combination of things that I've worked with over the years are what helped me to really, really recover and heal my body from lupus. So I'm hoping that, you know, the information I'm giving today is beneficial. If any of you out there do have autoimmune issues, again, don't take my word for it. Do your research on all of these herbs and spices. And if you if you are, dealing with some autoimmune conditions, make sure that your doctor or team of doctors, because I'm fully aware of the team. I still have my team. I just, I just don't spend a lot of doctors. Make sure that they're aware that you're working with some more natural remedies and that they can help you along that way as well. All right. Thank you, Jackie. I'm glad you appreciate that. So peppercorns, they're also high in antioxidants and they're great anti-inflammatory. Again, that word keeps coming up, right? They also help to boost absorption of nutrients, which is what I mentioned earlier. If you're making golden milk, sprinkle in a little black pepper, and you also want to have a fat in with the golden milk, because the fat also helps with the absorption of the curcumin from the turmeric. So when you're making golden milk, the spices I mentioned, plus the black pepper and some fat like the butter. And this video is going to be up here for you to go back and do the replay and watch over and over and write down, make your notes, because I'm aware that I'm going a little fast because I do have a lot of information to share with you. And if there's anything that you would like for me to go over in more detail, I can certainly do another video and spend a little bit more time on a couple of the spices and herbs. All right, so that was peppercorn. Allspice, let me just grab that. And again, I have, this one is in the powdered form. You can certainly get allspice in the whole form. And allspice comes from the dried fruit of the pimento tree. So you probably heard the word pimento as well. And let me show you, that's what the allspice looks like in the whole form. But I have it in the powder. Okay. And what does allspice smell like? It's kind of a mixture of cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. If you can put all of that together. It is, here's that word again, anti-inflammatory. It does help with digestion, and you're seeing a trend there as well. And it boosts immunity, just like all of the other spices that I mentioned. Your immune system, most of your immune system resides in the gut. So it would definitely serve to say that you should be working on healing your gut. By healing your gut, you're boosting your immunity, right? So allspice, again, boosts immunity. It's loaded with antioxidants, loaded with vitamin C, vitamin A, copper, in addition to iron as well. It is antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiseptic, all of those good things. All right. Again, you don't want to be using this I know people who use this a lot to cook with, but always, be mindful of how much you are using on a daily basis, because just because it's an herb and just because it's natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's too much of a good thing can be just that, too much, right? So you want to be very careful. All right, so that was allspice. Now this one is not necessarily a spice. It is actually, let me put this on the ground, sorry. This is actually a blend, and most people only think about it in the fall when everything pumpkin spice comes out. But this is something you should have and use in your spice cabinet all year round. If you drink coffee, take a little bit of pumpkin spice and sprinkle in there. It elevates your coffee to a whole other level because of all of the spices that are in there. And this particular one has cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, ginger, and cloves. A lot of the spices that I've already mentioned, right? So you add this to your coffee, you're basically, you just turned your coffee into a powerhouse, basically. So definitely keep this and work with pumpkin spice all year long, not just in the fall when everything pumpkin spice comes out at, those fancy coffee shops. All right. So you can also add, if you add some turmeric to this, instead, you know, at the beginning I gave you that turmeric, the turmeric tea or the golden milk blend. You can certainly just take some turmeric and add to this, or you can go back and, you know, you can write down your own little recipe and do that. But this has so many spices that I mentioned that are already in the golden milk blend. The only thing you would need to add would be some black pepper, and then your choice of milk, a little bit of butter, maybe some raw honey to sweeten if you want it to be sweetened, and there you have it. The easiest let's try that again. The easiest golden milk recipe. Turmeric, let me grab that real quick. Turmeric plus pumpkin spice, the pumpkin spice blend. And then you add your water or your particular choice of milk, the nut milk, or, you know, dairy if you want to do dairy. I typically use coconut milk, and then some raw honey. And you're done. That's your golden milk, right? Really easy. I mentioned that you can also add it to your coffee. And yeah, a lot of people just they think about pumpkin spice in September, October, maybe November, and then it's gone. But pumpkin spice is it's just a powerhouse of spices. So don't just leave it for those 3 months out of the year. Use it all year long. Sage. Let me grab. And you're probably thinking, again, sage, Thanksgiving. This is one of those blends that's used, or one of those spices that's used a lot during Thanksgiving to season the turkey. But a lot of people don't realize you can make an incredible tea with sage. Now, this is the powder form. You can certainly grow the herb, and I do have some growing in the backyard. And you can just pick off a couple of the leaves and throw it into, you know, a cup of hot water, let it steep for about 5 to 10 minutes. Add some raw honey to sweeten it, and you're good to go, right? But sage tea is really, really good for you. You can also add some lemon juice. You can add some lemon peels, some lemon slices, and that's a really good blend as well. Now, sage is loaded with antioxidants. It also helps to promote oral health. It helps with blood sugar, and you've seen that as a trend with a lot of these herbs as well. If more people worked with the spices in their cabinets, you shouldn't have any of these, there's diabetes and cholesterol. There's just so many herbs and spices in your cabinet that will help to alleviate some of these issues, right? So digestive health, it also promotes that. If you have gas, drinking some sage tea will help to alleviate that bloating. This also helps with diarrhea. Sage is also really good if you're experiencing depression. Just drink yourself a cup of sage tea. And if you have issues with memory, and I'm going to talk about another herb later on that also helps with memory, but sage is also really good for memory loss. All right. So sage tea, add some lemon juice to it, or not. You don't necessarily have to. All right, so that is sage. The next one is parsley. And I discovered parsley as a tea form several years ago when I was having some issues with retaining a lot of water. And I made a cup of parsley tea, and that helped to alleviate the swelling that I was experiencing, right? So parsley flakes, you can find this. You can use the dried, you can use the fresh. It's entirely up to you what you want to use. But the parsley is really good for if you have any kind of water retention issues. Now, the thing is, if you are taking medication to relieve water from your system, then you don't want to be taking parsley tea in addition to that, because then you're going to release too much water from your body. So it's one or the other. Okay, don't drink parsley tea in addition to taking water pills or something. And this is definitely not for women who are pregnant, because parsley can actually cause contractions. So if you are pregnant, stay away from parsley, and do not drink parsley tea or parsley in any form. You can add a little bit of lemon juice and some raw honey to the tea if you're having issues with water retention. But again, no pregnant woman should be drinking parsley or using parsley because it can cause uterine contractions. If you're taking a blood thinner, you also want to avoid parsley because it has vitamin K, which is a fat-soluble vitamin that is important when it comes to blood clotting. So if you're taking blood thinners and then you drink parsley on top of it, you're kind of, contradicting, right? So you don't want to be taking parsley or drinking parsley tea in addition to taking the blood thinners. If you are on, like I mentioned, if you're on diuretics, anything to help relieve water from your body, don't take parsley. Parsley is also rich in antioxidants, and if you have issues with kidney stones, drinking parsley may actually help to kind of break them up, but parsley also helps to prevent the formation of kidney stones. And it also helps to regulate blood sugar. So that is parsley. The other one that I wanted to talk about that you can actually make tea from, but a lot of people don't realize that, is rosemary. Let me see if I can find it. I did have a huge rosemary bush when I lived at another home, and I tried digging it up and bringing it, and it died. And that's when I realized that rosemary doesn't like to be, once it's planted, leave it. Rosemary does not like to be moved unless you have it planted in a pot, but mine was in the ground. But rosemary, if you're familiar with Shakespeare, rosemary is considered to be the herb of remembrance because it does help with memory issues. And the thing is, if it's in the same family with mint, oregano, lemon balm, all of those mints, and if you're allergic to any of those, then chances are you're going to be allergic to rosemary. So you want to be very careful there as well. And I don't know a lot of people who are allergic to rosemary, but you might be one of those. So just be very careful when you're working with rosemary. Rosemary is high in antioxidants. It's antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and like I mentioned, it's great for memory, but it also helps to lower blood sugar. So you're seeing a trend in a lot of these herbs and spices that I've mentioned, that they're really good for the immune system. They lower the blood sugar. They help with blood pressure. They do help in so many different ways. And most people just, they sprinkle a little bit into their food and they season their food, not realizing that you can actually just make teas with them as well. Jackie says, wow, I didn't realize the advantages of a lot of these herbs. I knew some, but I'm learning a whole lot today. Thank you. We'll rewatch the video and do my research. Yes, I do encourage anyone watching, do your own research, because I couldn't possibly go into all of the detail of all of these herbs. We could be here forever. So I just give you, the more important ones, and then I say, go down the rabbit hole, because the thing is, I haven't even shared with you any of the scientific research behind a lot of these herbs, and there's so many different studies that have been done on a lot of these herbs and spices that I've mentioned. So when you do your research, you'll find a lot of even more evidence out there as to the benefits of these herbs and spices. Okay. All right. Rosemary, you may not know this, is also really good for any kind of vision or eye health problems that you might be experiencing. And there have been numerous studies done that show that it actually slows down the progression of age-related eye issues. So you'll certainly come upon those studies whenever you're doing your research as well. Rosemary also helps to promote a healthy balance in your gut bacteria. And one of the problems with autoimmune conditions is that there's not enough healthy gut bacteria. So we have to supplement using, and a lot of these different herbs also, this is probably a whole other video right here, where different herbs provide different bacteria to the body, or beneficial bacteria to the body. And a lot of people don't realize that the gut needs a variety of different bacteria to make up the gut flora, a healthy gut flora, which then would cause your immune system to thrive, right? But because we're not feeding our bodies the way that we're supposed to be feeding our bodies, then it depletes our gut flora. It depletes the beneficial bacteria that we're supposed to be having, and then we end up with all of these autoimmune conditions, right? Like I said, that's a whole other video series right there. All right, so back to rosemary. We're talking about rosemary. Rosemary also helps your hair to grow. And I stand on that fact because years ago, when my hair started to fall, and I keep my head shaved because I did some childhood cancer research about 3 years ago. My hair had already grown back in full, had a full head of hair, like a 12-inch ponytail when it was, a braid. And I decided I was going to raise money for childhood cancer research, and at the end of it, I would shave my head. That was the deal. But prior to that, I think about 3 years prior to that, I had developed bald patches, a huge bald patch in the back, and a couple bald patches at the top. And that was all related to the lupus, right? So I did a lot of research and found a combination of different essential oils that would help to regrow my hair. And rosemary was one of them. Basil is another, but rosemary is instrumental in helping your hair to regrow. So if you are having issues from, losing your hair, get some rosemary essential oil and just simply put into your shampoo, and then or your conditioner, and then you can just wash your hair with that as well. And again, do some more research into this, because I like to combine a different only herb to help your hair regrow, but it is the top one. But I typically added it with rosemary. I added some tea tree, some basil essential oil in there, and then added it to my shampoo. I actually made my own shampoo back then as well, and that all helped my hair to regrow. So just a little bit of a side note when it comes to rosemary. You can also make a rosemary tea and certainly wash your hair with tea as well, and that will help. But the essential oil is just so concentrated that it might be more beneficial and might work on a faster scale for you. All right, so rosemary can also help with weight loss. And there was a study done on rats, and you'll come up with that study whenever you do some research. Rats were given a very, very high diet, high in fat diet. And then they were also fed rosemary, and the rosemary caused them to lose weight, even though that they were being fed this really high fat diet. So you find those studies whenever you do a little bit more research. And if you want me to go through some of these studies at a later date, I can certainly do that as well. But when you do your research, you'll find so much scientific basis for a lot of the stuff that I'm saying as well. The other one is oregano tea. So let me grab the oregano. A lot of people, you're probably thinking oregano. I use that to, that's one of the ingredients in Italian seasoning. But oregano tea is really, really good for you as well. And the oregano essential oil is very, very powerful as well. So if I would not add the oregano essential oil into the tea. What I do with the essential oil, and this is just a side note, the essential oil for oregano is considered to be a hot oil, which means that you don't want to apply it to your skin neat. And by neat, meaning that it's not mixed with a carrier oil like coconut oil, jojoba, grapeseed oil, one of those things. You want to dilute the oregano essential oil and then rub it on your throat. And I'm saying on your throat because it's really good if you feel like you're coming down with a sore throat. You want to rub some, just a drop of the oregano essential oil mixed in with some coconut oil or another carrier oil, and just massage it on your throat and on your chest, and that will kind of prevent you from going into a full-blown illness. It's really, really good for that. But the oregano tea, all you really need is like a cup of water, and this goes for the other teas as well. You just need a cup of water to maybe 2 teaspoons of the dried, and then you just bring it to a boil, then lower it, let it simmer, let it cool down a little bit, add some raw honey into it, maybe some lemon juice, and you have yourself a cup of oregano tea. Now, what is that good for? But before I go there, if you're allergic to mint, again, lemon balm, those in that particular family, then chances are you may be allergic to oregano. But I don't know a lot of people who are, but you might be one of the few. So if you're allergic to, again, mint, lemon balm, then you'll be allergic to oregano because those are in the same family. Now, benefits of oregano: it's antiviral, loaded with antioxidants. And I mentioned about the cough. If you do have a cough, then the oregano tea is really good for that. And you can also use the essential oil. If you have issues with digestion or any kind of issues in the gut area, the oregano will be really good for that as well. Insomnia, drinking a cup of tea, the oregano tea, prior to going to sleep, that will also help with the insomnia. It doesn't do anything for me as far as insomnia is concerned. The anise does help a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily make me fall asleep. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he said, well, what do you do before you go to bed? I said, I kind of veg out on Netflix, because I watch something that's kind of relaxing and kind of gets my head, it kind of help to empty my head somewhat. If I just to try to fall asleep, there's just so much stuff going on in my head, so sometimes I just veg out on Netflix. But you can try the oregano. You can certainly try the anise tea as well. Is considered to be hot when applied neat. So make sure you always dilute it with a particular oil, whatever oil you choose, and then you just rub it on your throat at the first sign of an itchy throat or a cough. So that is oregano. And I do believe there's one more I want to mention, only because we talked about the golden milk. And I want to mention cayenne pepper. Now, I'm not saying go out and make yourself some cayenne pepper tea, but if you're making the golden milk, you might want to take, you've already added in the black pepper into that, but if you want just a little bit more heat to it, just a dash, and I do mean a dash, because cayenne pepper is extremely hot. And be very careful if you're working with the powdered form. You do not want to get this stuff on your hands and then you rub it in your eyes. Not good, okay? But when you're making your golden milk, or even the chai masala, just add a dash of the cayenne pepper, and it just takes it to a whole new level. Just a hint of heat to it. It just feels so good. All right, so that's why I added in the cayenne pepper, and there's a host of benefits. Cayenne pepper, a lot of people, if you take the cayenne pepper, mix it with some coconut oil, or anything that's going to harden, and you have any kind of muscle pain or joint pain, just rubbing it into that area where it hurts, that will bring that inflammation down really, really fast. So it's really, really good for pain and inflammation. So that's why I wanted to mention cayenne pepper in there. Not necessarily, don't go out making yourself some cayenne pepper tea, because no. I can you imagine a teaspoon of cayenne pepper? No, really, really hot. So when you're doing your golden tea, just a dash. That's all you need of the cayenne pepper. All right. So I think that is all of the herbs and spices that I wanted to talk about today. There's a few more, but I think we're going to do that in another session, because I know that here we're approaching an hour, so that's pretty good. I hope everyone benefited from this episode today, learning about all of these different herbs. So what I want you to do is go to your spice cabinet and check out what herbs I mentioned or spices that I mentioned today, and see what you have, and just get creative. Start blending a couple things together. And if you want, just rewatch this video, and you'll hear a list of different ingredients from the chai masala as well as from the golden tea that you can start putting together yourself. All right. You are very welcome, Jackie. And for any of you who might be watching, if you've posted your comments somewhere else on Facebook or on YouTube, I will go back and I will check those out and I will respond as soon as I can. All right, because I'm not seeing all of them. If you didn't give StreamYard permission to show your comments, then they're not coming through here. But I will certainly go back and I will check on Facebook as well as YouTube, because I'm streaming to both of those right now. All right, so thank you so much for spending this time with me. I've had fun. This, you can tell, this is one of my passions, is just learning about different herbs and just sharing with you beneficial herbs and spices that can, you might have but not necessarily know just how beneficial they are for you and how good they are for your body. And you've seen the ranges from the blood pressure to the blood sugar to the immune system. So start working with your herbs on a more consistent basis and start creating teas. Don't just necessarily sprinkle them into your cooking whenever you're cooking, right? All right, so any questions, again, you can feel free to post because I will get back to them. Rewatch the video. It's going to be here on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch and get whatever information you might miss. If there's any other herbs and spices that you may want me to talk about, please share that as well. Nosrab says, fantastic job. Thank you so much. That's my buddy. I know exactly who that is. Let me see who else. Don Parker says, thank you so much. Yes, today was Tea Time Tuesday, but like I said, I wanted to share not just a particular tea blend that I created. I wanted to come up with a list of things that I know chances are you already have in your spice cabinet that you can make your own teas out of, right? And that was my goal for today. So hopefully I was successful in that area. Thank you so much again for sharing this time with me, and I will see you again real soon on another episode of Tea Time Tuesday.